yeah, I think for me it was really very beautiful. Last week's sharing of Jello, it was very interesting to I mean, because I haven't studied philosophy myself, so everything was very new. And yeah, and I think Jello really had, like, he was posting very interesting questions, no? And I don't know, I think each one of us, maybe we haven't really thought about it, but we all carry many questions in our hearts, no? We seek many answers, we seek to know many things, we seek to know a deeper meaning and purpose of our life. And I don't know what struck you, but personally for me, one thing that really marked me last week was, yeah, was really, how all of the questions, if like there's one answer, it all boils down to love. It all boils down to love. No, the question, where am I? No, knowing how eventually we are called to be in the loving hands of God, because this is the only constant of our life. Where do we come from? We come from love. We come from God. Where am I going? No, wherever we may be heading to, no, literally now, no, in our journey, in our studies, in our life, maybe some of us are already working. All of us, we are on this journey doing what you are doing because we are searching for happiness. And not any kind of happiness, no. We want this true happiness. We search for this true happiness. And this true happiness and lasting happiness comes when we love. And the question, who am I? I am loved. We are loved. We experience love from many people, concrete people. We experience being loved by God. And love is that image we are made. No, we are made in. We are made in the image and likeness of God. And one of the questions that you selected in the poll to discuss, to share about, what is the way? The way is love. And the way, one thing that really marked me when I took it to prayer was more than a journey. Sometimes we always think that the way is like a path, Yes, it is true. But the way is also a person. Now, in one of the passage from John 14, verse 6, it says, Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So the way is the person, and this person of Jesus, who came to show us the way of love. And so, this coming Holy Week, he invites us once again to walk this way of love with him. Now in John 10:10, Jesus says, I came so that you might have life and to have it more abundantly. And Jesus came and walked this journey because he yearns for us to have life. He yearns for us not only to live any kind of life, but he yearns for us to live it to the full. And each one of us, don't we yearn to have experienced this deep fulfillment of life? I like, when I remember each one of us in our sharing, even the topics we choose to share. I think Dre was sharing about what is our why in life. Because deep down, we seek the deep fulfillment that will never fade, that will remain forever. Now, Jesus came to show us that this is not just a dream and ideal. Yes, it is an ideal, but this ideal is made possible in his life. And it is possible in our lives as well. But we need to follow him in this way of love. And if loving is what constitutes our deepest fulfillment, and we want to live that full life, the only way is to walk this way of love with him, in him. And so, if there is one thing of Holy Week that we can share with each other, all our experiences, actually really boils down to the way of love. I think for me was, when I was praying and when listening to you share, one thing that marked me was in our experiences, prayer with our family, going for procession to our family. It's all this, I think what marks us, all these experiences, even Jello, pushing, going to the missionaries of charity, the Pangasinan, it all boils down to love, because we have tasted a form of love amongst our family. We have received love, we have given love. And so Holy Week is really about loving, this way of love. And just a bit of context, no? Holy Week actually begins tomorrow on Palm Sunday. No, I chose this image as the background because it's like how Jesus started his journey into Jerusalem again, and then he was welcomed by the palms, the people, and when it begins tomorrow, no, I just also invite you this year to see how this Holy Week is. It gives answers to really how we can live that fulfilled life. It is, yes, it's the journey of Jesus, but it's also about our life because he came for us. And so imagine, in this time of prayer today, pause, look at him, look at Jesus, because he wants to invite us. Come and walk in this way of love with me. And so how are we called to love? In this way of love. In Deuteronomy 6:5, God shared, invites us to love him, to love God with our whole heart, whole being, and whole strength. And this is how we are called to love. With with the wholeness of us. The good and even the parts maybe we are still learning to accept. Our limitations, maybe sometimes some of our unpleasant experiences in life. God invites us to love him not only with the good parts, but really with our entire being, the whole of us. Now, by this way of love, Jesus sees our capacity to love. Now, he invites us to walk this way of love, yes, because he wants us to grow deeper, to experience more the fulfillment of life, but because he sees our possibilities. He sees that we can go further, we can go deeper. And he invites us to carry our cross as he did, to love as he loved. And so how can we go further? No, I was praying, like Jesus reminded me of this. If we were to go deeper in this way of loving, it can be very concrete. And today I'd like to share with you these 5 ways of love. These concrete ways of going deeper in our loving that we can maybe have at the back of our mind, our hearts, as we allow Jesus to invite us to go further. And so I'll just briefly mention before I will just share them in a bit more detail later. First, love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. Then the second grade of loving. Love one another as I have loved you. Love one another as I have loved you. Love those that are your enemies. This is the third grade of love. Love those that are your enemies. And the fourth, love like Christ. And lastly, to love with a love that conquers evil with goodness. To love with a love that conquers evil with goodness. Each one of us, we have this same capacity of loving. And it is really what fulfills our heart deeply, what makes us truly happy. And so as we see these different grades of loving in that sense, let us not see it as a way of, okay, I need to do this, a checkbox to be a good person, a good Christian, but really to see that it's not just fulfilling it, but because we want to be happy. This is a part of the journey, and it helps us deep down to be happy. And behind it, I invite you to see all of this in the light of the journey that we are about to embark on this Holy Week, this way of love. In Luke 10, verse 27, it says, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. With your whole heart, being, strength, mind, but ultimately your neighbor as yourself. This call on loving is actually a call to do to others what we desire for ourselves, how we desire to be loved, and also to avoid doing to others what we don't want to receive. And I think, when I was praying, actually, it struck me how this is really a very basic way of loving in that sense. Fundamental. Maybe fundamental is a better word. Because all of us, we can identify with this. I think whether we are Christians or non-Christians, whether we celebrate Holy Week or not, all of us, we seek to experience and to love like that. But being each one of us being here, and as we embark on this journey this week, Jesus nudges us through his life to go a little further. Yes, loving your neighbor as yourself. It is important, fundamental, but he invites us to see it in a slightly different tone and light. Loving with a love that is inclusive. That is to see our neighbors as all our brothers and sisters. No, so this includes the people, because when we think of the word neighbor, maybe we just think of the person nearest to us. But he invites us to go further. These people might not necessarily be the nearest to us. And for me, when I was praying, I don't know if you read Fratelli Tutti, an encyclical by Pope Francis. If you have time, I invite you to really, along the years, this year, to find time to read it briefly, because he has so many beautiful reflections. And in one of the sharing, number 80, he shared about the Luke 10. And he shared, who is my neighbor? But inviting us, to see in a different perspective, instead of seeing who is our neighbor, increasing more and more, our vision of who is that neighbor. He invites us instead to become that neighbor ourselves, to become the neighbor ourselves. And so as we journey in that tomorrow, from Palm Sunday, now imagine yourself being with Jesus. He was triumphantly welcomed in the music. You saw the music video at the beginning. He was triumphantly welcomed into Jerusalem. And he invites us to walk with him, to look at the faces around us. Maybe you see children, maybe you see women, different men who are tired or who are excited to see him. Really, people from all walks of life. I invite you to also ponder, who else do you see? Who else do you see? And how are you called to be that neighbor to them? Perhaps extending this love to be that neighbor could be as simple as a question. What is your name? Anong pangalan mo? It's one of the first basic questions I learned here. And because really behind these simple questions, more than just asking what is your name, like a healer to meet someone new, actually behind it, we are sharing with them, you matter. You matter in my life because I want to know your name and I want to know who you are, because I care for you. And so how else can we express our love to be that neighbor, just like the Good Samaritan? No, oh, sorry, I didn't share this image, but this is the image of the Palm Sunday. And so second, going a little deeper in this way of love. No, Jesus invites us to love one another as I have loved you. Love one another as I have loved you. And as we recognize and experience his love for us, he invites us to grow and go deeper in our loving by learning also to share it with others. Knowing the washing of the feet, Maundy Thursday, he reveals to us in a very concrete way. It revealed so much of his tenderness and mercy. He revealed so much of his love for each one of us. This humble love poured out to his beloved disciples. Now, for me, every time I imagine myself in the scene, Jesus taking off his outer garments, bending down. Really, he showed so much that quality of love, one that is humble, one that is tender, not afraid to be vulnerable. So how have we, in our own journeys, experienced this ourselves, this love of Jesus, one that is humble, tender, and vulnerable? No, maybe it could be through our loved ones, our parents or helper who cared for us when we are sick. Or maybe in a moment when we suffered a sports injury, we cannot do many, many things, no? Maybe we experience that love through the tenderness of someone who cared for us. Or even a friend who stood by us, who listened to us in our difficult moments, meeting us where we are at. Now, the love of Jesus is shown also through concrete people in our lives. How has he been loving us, journeying with us? And then as we walk on this journey with him, then Jesus invites us once again to this supper with him. As we see how he has been loving us, He invites us to also take off our outer garments, to bend down, to wash the feet of the other, just as he did. And when I was praying this time, what really came to my mind in my prayer was each one of you. Because it really, really marked me, these months. I was sharing with Jello how I see each one of you grow in so many ways though. And you came to my mind because I saw how this was exactly how you are loving and really beginning to share this humble, vulnerable love with one another. Because one way you are taking that risk to love, sharing the stories which are part of yourself. And yeah, I think Kyle, sorry, you were sharing your experiences with the Pansol youth, and Dre as well. No, he also experienced that moment. And wasn't it an amazing experience? No, this sharing in itself, even as we share our stories, our lives with one another, is a very concrete way of loving like Christ. No, because when we share our experiences, we are sharing a part of us. We are offering this vulnerable love to one another. And the way of love entails very much this, loving others as Christ loved us. And with this, we can taste that true happiness that is lasting. Thirdly, love those that are your enemies. I don't know about you, but for me it was like, wow, it's really a very big call sometimes. Jesus invites us to love our enemies. This really is a call to go beyond our comfort zones of love. And who are the enemies of Jesus? No, this is a picture of him in the Garden of Gethsemane when he was about to be arrested. No, maybe for Jesus, the enemies that he had then was the guards, the centurion, the scribes, the Pharisees, the people who wanted to arrest him. But in his own journey, he shows us that it is possible to love our enemies. It's not so distant. Now, for Jesus, perhaps behind it, I felt like he was inviting me to see that his greatest enemies weren't these concrete people that maybe we are seeing in the picture. But Jesus saw his deepest, greatest enemy actually behind the people, the hatred. Hatred that was manifested in them. And the people who wanted him crucified, all these, they were the people who carried a form of hatred. But Jesus showed us this powerful love that is so different from the world. Because never once did Jesus conquer hatred with hatred. Never once he conquered hatred with hatred. He loved again and again. No matter how he was condemned, he was attacked, he was hit. He loved. And really, it is indeed very challenging. I think Jello, if I didn't understand it wrongly, was sharing that this is like a way, like an irrational love, forgiving love. It's irrational. For man, it is impossible. But for God, no, it's not impossible. And he came and chose to walk this path of passion because he wants to show us that there's something greater. Alone, if we try to do it, it's not possible. But as we walk with him, in him, he shows us that it is possible in our life. This forgiving love isn't so much about forgetting, isn't about not feeling the pain because Jesus remembered. Jesus felt the pain, he felt the agony, but he chose to offer this love anyway. This forgiving love. Love your enemies and pray, pray for those who persecute you. Love those to love, those who your enemies. This way of loving our enemies with a forgiving, irrational love. What does it mean to you in this time? Who are our enemies? Or maybe, what are our enemies? Maybe it's not so much of concrete persons. Maybe our enemies could be realities, could be situations, or maybe sometimes it's even our own perfectionism that we carry. The enemy that pulls us down and makes us negative, that makes us judge ourselves and unconsciously others. Now, what are our enemies in this time? Now, Jesus shows us that it is possible to love our enemies and to allow love to triumph over our enemies. And fourthly, nudging us even a little more further, Jesus invites us to love with a love as he did. So to love with the love of Christ. And what is this love? This love of Christ here refers to his journey, his walk, carrying the cross, his walk, being crucified. This way of loving is one that is sacrificial, universal, and selfless. And that invitation to carry our cross, not just simply to carry our cross, not just because we need to carry our cross because it's our cross, but to see that we are called to carry our cross because it's a way of loving. Now, this is what we will be experiencing in the journey with Jesus as we journey with him on Good Friday. Jesus walked this path to teach us how to carry and embrace our cross as a way of loving. No, and he really knows it isn't easy. So that is why he knows and he meets us, especially in the moments that maybe we carry our crosses. We feel like we have no more strength, we fall. Jesus fell too, because when he fell, there he meets us where we are at. And he wants to strengthen us again to know we are not alone. With his presence, he invites us to draw strength from him. And Jesus was so convinced in this way of loving that despite all the physical pain, the mocking that he was experiencing, he kept loving right up to the cross and right up to being crucified. Now, this way of loving is how we too are called to share with others with all in this time. Now, what are the crosses we might be carrying? Maybe sometimes it could be the consequences of our actions. Sometimes it could be the implications of situations that are beyond us. For example, like the pandemic, maybe we experience many anxieties, stress, because there's so much uncertainties. This cross is something we cannot control. It's something that is beyond us. It's not caused by our own actions. Or maybe we are experiencing the cross of tension because there are conflicts around us. What are these crosses that we are carrying in this time? Jesus invites us to walk on this way of love with him by taking up our cross, journeying with him in his passion. And finally, Jesus shows us this ultimate way of loving with a love that conquers evil with goodness. This is his love revealed to us, none other than his resurrection. Easter Sunday. Love is really the greatest weapon we can offer to the world today. It's one that conquers all things, if you look at it. I think for me in this time, reading the news about the world, one thing that really pains my heart, every day when I read about the news, is the situation in Russia and Ukraine. Because there's so many moments I really feel so helpless seeing about the situations, the gravity of the situation, the people hurting, suffering, and even the one causing harm, because deep down they don't know what they are doing. They don't know, for me it's just I feel so helpless in all of this. But I remember in one sharing over lunch, one of my sister in community was reminding me that not to lose hope and power in the goodness of love. And then they were sharing also the positive news from this. Yes, there's so much suffering and pain this time, we cannot deny. But look, the world is also so united, pouring out their loves in so many ways. In the form of hope, encouragement, support through prayers, people opening their homes graciously, giving and sharing all that they have. And these are the light and the hope of power of love. And for me, wow, it really marked me one powerful news that I read quite a few weeks ago. How even at when the Ukrainian soldiers, when they're fighting the Russian soldiers and they surrendered, how they themselves, they didn't hurt them. They even offered food to them and tried to bring them back home safely, allow them to speak to their family members. they shed a light of that glimmer of their hope and love the world needs today. No, returning love, conquering evil with goodness. And love can make a difference beyond what we see, beyond what we can understand in this time. Now, loving in small ways, in big ways, all this matters. It makes a difference. And one very concrete way we can conquer evil with goodness, one very concrete way is to share the word of God. And is the word of God powerful? Is the word of God powerful? No, siempre. In Hebrews 4:12, it says the word of God is living and effective. It's sharper than any two-edged sword. And for me, it marked me so much. I think we have experienced, this in our own journeys, isn't it? And think about it, isn't it what the world needs in this time? The most powerful weapon that can penetrate the depth of hearts to this specificity, to be able to discern reflections, thoughts, to really change and transform the soul. This sharing the word of God through our lives, it can transform the world, bringing light to darkness, hope in moments of despair, courage in a time of trials, strength in our limitations, peace amidst war. And Jesus assures us this: take courage. I have conquered the world. And this way of loving is what can truly transform the world. Not just temporarily, but with an everlasting impact. This is what the world truly needs in this time. So, this Holy Week, now let us discover these different ways of loving that will ultimately lead us to that answer of living a fulfilled life. Now, because love is the answer to the deepest questions we are carrying. And loving is the answer to the deep happiness we are searching for. So as we begin this short time moment of reflection, I invite you really to see Holy Week in the light of this way of love. And allow Jesus to look at you in your eyes, to gaze at you. Now walk in this way of love with me. Walk in this way of love with me. And so we'll have about 10 minutes of reflection. And we can come back at 11, it's quite 11:25 thereabout. Okay. And we can, if you like, you can take these passages. You don't need to answer all these questions, but choose the question or what marked you the most to just stay there.